Welcome to On Texas Football Special Edition time. I'm Bobby Burton, joined by Gerry Hamilton and Jeff Howe. And what's this special edition about? It's about the Texas football coach, Steve Sarkisian, owning the Oklahoma coach, Brent Venables. Venables, a defensive-minded coach. Well, I got news for you guys. Texas has put up more yardage than the Sooners in every single game these two coaches have faced off. Texas leads in score 136-43. Three of the last four, if you just combine those, 106-9. Steve Sarkisian owns Brent Venables, and not just as a head coach, but as an offensive coordinator versus a defensive coordinator, in my opinion. Gerry, we got some stats to back up that assertion. You want to start us off?
Yeah, what's crazy, one of the crazy things about this game, it's a line of scrimmage game. Everything falls in the line. The team that leads in rushing has won all four games. Oklahoma, Texas, 3 of them. Oklahoma, 1 of them. The team that's had the least turnovers has won all 4 of these games. Texas in 3 of them. Oklahoma in 1 of them. Oh, and then there's sacks, line of scrimmage. The team that's had the most sacks has won each of the last 4 games. Texas, 3 of them. Oklahoma, only 1. So for Brent Venables, this guy that is a tremendous blitzing play caller on defense, everything still falls in line of scrimmage game. But I think the most interesting stat I came across is one of the big sticking points with the Texas fan base has been Texas in third quarter offense. Well, against Oklahoma, in the last 4 games, in these 4 games, Sark versus Venables, Texas has outscored Oklahoma 30-7.
So much for those halftime adjustments.
And then in the fourth quarter, 37-7. So in the second half of these 4 games that Sark and Brent Venables have matched up, it's been 67-14 Texas in the second half. That's a pretty amazing stat when you get down to it.
Texas scored 23 unanswered, 20 in the second half to 0 for the Sooners yesterday. Jeff, before I go to you, I want to mention this. I mean, why do I say that Sark owns them? I mean, look, the only game Texas has lost in this matchup between these two, Texas still had 525 yards of total offense. Sark is doing what he needs to win the game. I mean, 300 yards yesterday compared to 258. But this game was decided early in the fourth quarter, I guess. Jeff, your thoughts on the topic or the idea that Sark owns Brent Venables right now in this rivalry?
Yeah, even if you look at the one game Venables won in this series, the 2023 game, like you said, Bobby, Texas won the total yardage battle. Texas got off to a terrible start. You had the interception OU score off of. You had that freak interception where Quinn's trying to hit Jatavian Sanders down the seam. It pops up. OU gets the turnover. So Texas with an awful start. You also had that goal line fiasco where you got it first and goal at the 1 and you can't score. Yep. Yet Texas still had the lead in the closing minutes. If it's not for an awful start that puts Texas in a hole and Dylan Gabriel rushing for the bulk of his 100-plus yards on the ground on that last drive, Brent Venables is 0 for Texas. And to put that, you want to put that in perspective, like think about where Texas was. And granted, Texas wasn't competing for national championship at that point. But once Texas A&M left for the SEC, there was one rivalry game on the schedule for Texas, and it was OU, and you were judged by that game. Well, Brent Venables doesn't have Bedlam anymore. So for that fan base, this is how you're judged. And this is my favorite Texas OU stat. Saturday's win for Texas means 26 of the last 29 Texas OU games have been decided by the team that wins the rushing yardage battle. You cannot hide from physicality in this game. You can talk about being physical. You can have all the false bravado you want. But at the end of the day, the team that puts its hand in the dirt, fires off, and can consistently knock the other guy backwards, that's the team that's going to win the game. And to Gerry's point, it's weird how we think of, you think of Sark football at Texas, and it's like, well, sometimes they can get a lead and maybe they sit on and they've got to protect it. No, against Oklahoma, it's just kind of like this surge that just slowly builds. And I want to go back real quick, Bobby, to that 5-game winning streak Bob Stoops had over Mac Brown, because I think it hit me in the game thread over at ontexasfootball.com where somebody said, man, is this what OU fans felt like when Bob Stoops was handing Mac his head in the early 2000s? I went back and looked at it, Bobby, the rushing yardage differential in those 5 games. In 2000, OU 245 to -7. 2001, OU 63 to 27. 2002, OU 266 to 53. 2003, 189 to 171. And in 2004, 301 to 154. You could, and it's not that Mac Brown didn't have physical teams, but in that game, Bob Stoops' teams were more physical. Right now, Steve Sarkisian has a more physical team in the Cotton Bowl than Brent Venables does.
Brent Venables said it in the post game.
Yeah,
we were getting knocked back. We weren't playing enough on their side of the line of scrimmage. Is that what physicality means? I felt that way about Florida versus Texas last week. So I think that's fair. Hey, we've got some more comments and more thoughts with this right now. But let's first say thank you to our sponsor for this special episode. That's the folks over at the Co-op. University Co-op is a nonprofit that has been serving the Longhorn community, guys, since 1896. Every penny of profit directly benefits course material scholarships. In fact, over 9,000 students at the university will receive course material scholarships this academic year. Shop the Co-op today for all your game day gear, while giving back to the university and the student population. Hook them from the Co-op. All right, guys, we got a couple more thoughts on this. And Brent Venables, the thing that I find, again, I'll go back to it, is Sark's an offensive coach. You know, Brent Venables, a defensive coach. I mean, yesterday, you take it, for example, Brent Venables supposedly had the number 1 defense in the country, the best third down defense in the country, one of the best rushing defenses in the country. Yet, I mean, Texas basically moved the ball 10+ play drives 3 times in a row, moved the ball again in the fourth quarter, and it didn't look like anything. I'm going to say this without being rude. It didn't feel like anything was rushed or pushed. You know what I mean? It felt very even. But is there something schematically that Sark does, or just does he find something that works against this overpressure Sooner defense that exposes them? I mean, because he does. He exposes them each and every year, even when Texas lost this game. I mean, they had 527 yards of total offense in 2023. What are your thoughts, Jerry?
Well, yesterday was interesting because that was a lower possession game. It's almost like Sark was letting them bake in the heat a little bit and huddling up a little bit more, right? Getting communication where it needs to be. But I don't know if there's an answer to this other than, what I said earlier. I want to reiterate something. In Sark's 3 wins over Venables, you know what the second half score is? All in those 3 games combined, 54-0. Yeah. Oklahoma hasn't scored in the second half in the 3 losses. Like 54-0. How do you not score in 3 second halves of a rivalry game? That's an incredible stat we just stumbled upon because we had this video idea. I mean, 54-0 is an incredible number in a rivalry game in the second half. And the explanation for me about this is I think Texas runs the ball in the second half a lot better in these games that they're winning.
They certainly have, outside of the Dylan Gabriel year.
Yes.
When he went nuts.
Yes. And you know what? In the wins, they have 2 turnovers and Oklahoma has 7. So, I mean, they're possessing the football. They're winning the possession battle. And it doesn't mean time of possession because sometimes you can score quick, but they're possessing the football in these games. And choking out's a weird term to use, but that's kind of feels like what it is in the second half of this series right now. I just can't get over that Oklahoma in the 3 losses hasn't scored a point in the second half under Brent Venables. That's wild.
Well, Jerry, it is wild until you consider this fact, okay? And that is the 3 scores of those games are combined 106-9.
Yeah, Oklahoma's best quarter's been the first quarter.
Points in the second half.
No,
106-9.
Yes, Oklahoma's at best quarter under Brent Venables versus Sark has been the first quarter.
Yeah.
I mean, they were up 3-0 yesterday. They were up 3-0 last year, 7-7 in the game they won. The first quarter has been Oklahoma's best quarter. That's the crazy thing. But the second half has been, I mean, it's been a disaster outside of the Dylan Gabriel game for Oklahoma.
Jeff, did you see anything that caught your eye yesterday where you said Sark's got a feel for this against Venables and what he tries to do? Obviously, the outside zone with Trey Wisner, the Sooner Slayer, has been working the last 2 years. What do you make of that in overall with OU?
Yeah, I think bigger picture, what you're talking about, Bobby, with Sark in this game. I think you go back to the first play call Sark ever dialed up in this game. Go back to that 2021 game. It's a quick screen to Xavier Worthy. He makes a guy miss and burns off for a 75-yard touchdown. I mean, I think that set the tone. The best coaches that Texas has ever had, and none more so than Coach Royal, they get what this game means. And, some, like in the case of Mac, I think it took him a minute to kind of refigure his bearings, and you were going against a really good program at the time with Bob Stoops' team. But I think Sark understands what this game is all about. Going back to what Gerry was talking about with the huddle, I felt like they mixed it really well. Some people talk about tempo, and I think you would get into that old Art Briles, Gus Malzahn mindset of, okay, tempo means you just want to go fast. No, the coaches that are really good with tempo are the ones that know, hey, okay, we need to dial it back right here. Now we need to crank it up. Now we kind of need to be, split the difference a little bit. I thought Sark did a really good job of adjusting tempo. And I thought they weathered the storm too, Bobby. Like those first couple of drives for Texas were not very good. And I think Trey Wisner, to your point, I think he had to adjust early. If you're a running back in this game, this is not a game where you can dance and let things develop. The minute you see a little bit of daylight, you got to hit that hole hard and you got to hit it violently. It's almost, Texas plays some great teams in the SEC, but I think maybe the speed of this game, the uniqueness of this game for guys, I think it gets you ready for the NFL maybe more than other games because those passing windows close a little bit quicker than they otherwise would. The hole doesn't open up quite as big as it usually does, and it probably closes a little faster. I just think Texas I think the fact that Texas had the Florida game, they knew, look, if you lose this game, your season for all intents and purposes is over, and everybody's talking about 2026. So your season was on the line. I think this goes back to show you experience matters in this game because regardless of what you want to say about John Mateer's hand, you could tell some of those interceptions he made were just bad decisions. And I think for Ben Arbuckle, too, calling the game in his first game, you could tell this wasn't PK's first Texas OU game. So no matter how you slice it, Bobby, Steve Sarkisian's staff out-coached Brent Venables' staff on Saturday, and I don't think that was any more evident than one of the worst examples of end-of-half clock/game management I've ever seen in a big game.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Can I add one more,
add this too. Hold on one second, Gerry. I would add this. The other thing we're talking about as you talk about their offense and lack of production, you got to remember in 4 games against Sark, they've had 3 different offensive coordinators.
Yeah,
I mean they've had no synchronicity and no time to really develop because they keep losing coordinators. Jeff Lebby, now the head coach at Mississippi State, had the most success against Texas. The first year they couldn't do anything because they had Davis Bevel as their quarterback.
Right.
The second year he did something with Dylan Gabriel. But my point being, that's part of maybe the reason why Sark owns Brent Venables too. Sark's had no turnover at any of the coordinator spots, whereas Brent Venables can't figure out. He had Lebby, but when he lost him, it was all gone.
Venables, Oklahoma, we'll see how the season goes, kind of mirrors Muschamp at Florida, by the way, in that regard. Great defensive coordinator and play caller, defensive head coach that offensively there were just struggles and changes made throughout. Just something there. Here's the last thing for me on this. What's Brent Venables' calling card? What did Colt McCoy tell us Friday? He dials up pressures, right? And you never know where they're coming from. You know how important that is in this game? In the 3 losses, Oklahoma has 1 sack, and 0 sacks. 0. 2 sacks and 3 losses for Brent Venables' defense. So the only way that happens is if you're running the ball effective. That's the kryptonite. If you're staying ahead of the chains and you're running the football well and you're not putting your offense in harm's way. That's why it just rushing stats in this game, rushing. If you're winning the rushing battle, it is really hard for that defense to pin their ears back and Brent Venables to go get after the quarterback. They had 9 sacks against Auburn, and they had 1 yesterday. They had 1. 1, and 0 in the losses.
Yeah. I would add this too. Y'all talk about rushing. In each of these last 4 games, Texas has had the better running back too.
Oklahoma struggled with that
position. Bijan Robinson, Roshan Johnson, Jonathan Brooks, Trey Wisner last year, Trey Wisner this year. No question Texas had the better running back in these games.
Well, and by the way, in this game, the other thing you've seen in the Brent Venables tenure to this point, they're getting worse running the football, not better. And that starts with those running backs. Remember, Oklahoma had the running back advantage in this game for a while, and it was out of the backfield too, right? I mean,
Joe Mixon and Samaj Perine and DeMarco Murray,
Quentin Griffin. I mean, like performance in the game, not the NFL draft pick, but they're going the wrong direction on offensive line and running the football at Oklahoma. And it's going to show up the rest of the season. I think remember this Oklahoma-Texas game for Texas fans that watch Oklahoma the rest of the year. If you can't run the football in the neutral side against Texas after Florida did the week before, good luck the rest of your schedule.
All right. Jeff, you have anything before we get out of here on this one? Because I think it's valuable. I do think that this is a topic because especially frankly, to Texas fans who cherish this rivalry and maybe OU fans who are second-guessing their coaching staff right now. Do you think, bottom line, do you think Sark has Brent Venables' number overall, Jeff?
I mean, I go back to some numbers I crunched in the offseason, and I don't know if Texas is going to compete for a CFP spot or a championship this year. We'll see what the second half of the season holds. But no Texas coach has ever done it without a sustained run of success against Oklahoma. I go back to it. Darrell Royal at one point, while in the midst of his 3 national championships, won 12 of 13 against Oklahoma. Fred Akers had a run from 77 to 81 where you went 4-1 and actually won a couple more after that. Mac Brown, when Mac got it flipped from 05 to 09, he won 4 of 5 against Oklahoma. So any Texas coach that's put Texas in national championship contention hasn't done it unless you've had a sustained run of success against Oklahoma. Oklahoma coming into this one, Bobby, they'd won 11 of 16. So now that you've won 3 of 4 and you feel like now Venables is up against it really, and that fan base is going to let him hear about it for the next year, is this where Sark can help Texas get rid of the Oklahoma problem the program has had and really start one of those runs in Texas' favor? It's been a minute since Texas has had one of theirs. They had one back-to-back in the series since 08 and 09. So, I do think right now Sark owns Venables, and considering where this rivalry has been for the better part of the last 15 years, I'll take it.
All right.
I got one more thing. Yeah, I want to add a recruiting piece to this too. But Sark mentioned in the press conference his DFW guys, and we got to keep getting DFW guys. Recruiting is very transactional now. Recruiting is not the same as when all of us got into this business. Yep. But I will say this game does matter in DFW and recruiting. In Bob Stoops' heyday over Mac Brown would have had trouble getting Colin Simmons and all these DFW guys the way Oklahoma was winning the games. He was winning a lot of the in-state battles. He wasn't winning them all. This 3 out of 4 in the way Texas has done this. And Oklahoma fans that say quarterback injuries are not. Kids look at games different than fans. Kids see domination. And so this is another big game for Texas and DFW. They are winning the DFW recruiting battle right now, in part because Chris Gilbert and the staff, but in part because they're winning the key game on the field in front of the kids.
Yeah, they lost. The one they lost last year was Michael Fasusi, who played on Saturday.
Yep. And he wasn't coming to Texas because Trevor Gooseby was there. He was going somewhere he could start as a freshman.
Yeah. All right. That'll do it for us here on Texas Football, this special Sunday edition. Thanks again to our friends over at the Co-op. Make sure you check it out. They had over 9,000 students last year receive course material scholarships because of purchases by UT fans at the University of Co-op. Thank you all very much. All right, for Gerry Hamilton and Jeff Howe, as well as our producer, Matt Hutchison, I'm Bobby Burton. Jerry, You and Rob will be back later tonight on the live stream to answer any questions and follow up on this big Longhorn victory, 23-6 over the Oklahoma Sooners. For Jeff and Gerry, I'm Bobby. Hook 'em, guys.